The honourable member for Saanich Gulf Island is rising on a point of order.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I seek unanimous consent to be allowed to participate in this historic apology on behalf of the Green Party.
Will the member have unanimous consent? We have unanimous consent. Please proceed.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank all my colleagues for this honour to speak today to discuss the very important sentiments of all my colleagues and leaders of all parties for this historic apology to the Italian-Canadian community that were interned and the entire community affected by this injustice.
It's obviously never too late to apologize. My honourable colleagues, the Prime Minister, the Leader of the Official Opposition, and the Leader of the New Democratic Party, and I was particularly touched by the words of our colleague from Laurentide Labelle in her speech, focusing on how much this affected the mothers and the children left behind. The notion of a Canadian child dying from malnutrition while their father was wrongly imprisoned for years during a war that they were not participating in, and they were not a threat to Canada. This apology is a long time coming, and so many of those who were directly affected, who were interned, are not any longer with us. But their children and their grandchildren have been long waiting for this apology. The Leader of the Official Opposition, of course, made the point that it was in 1990 that former Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Brian Mulroney, made a full apology, but as was related, it was seen, and it was insufficient in that it was not in the House of Commons. The apology from Prime Minister Mulroney was certainly a comprehensive, full apology, but it did not have the gravitas that the apology today will have. Another former Prime Minister attempted to make this right. In 2005, former Prime Minister Paul Martin put forward a plan for an apology with funds set aside for reparations and to mark the contributions that Italian Canadians had made. But an election intervened, and that specific apology and those specific funds were never designated to their intended recipients. The Italian community of Canada had been so wrongly abused through the course of the Second World War. And finally, we had a private member's bill from former member from Saint-Léonard, Saint-Michel, Massimo Picchetti, put forward a private member's bill in 2009 to finally have an apology in this House. Well, today, thanks to our current Prime Minister, and I do thank him, this is the appropriate apology that Italian Canadian communities and individuals, particularly those who actually were interned, and their children and their grandchildren, and all of those affected by this grievous wrong. The assumption that if you were an Italian Canadian, you were a fascist. It's very clear that that was not the case. People were arrested, taken from their families, not to see them for years. I note some historians are now questioning in our daily press whether we should be careful not to apologize too fully. I reject that. I reject that because if people hold ideas, if they were persuaded at some point that maybe one or two people may have been part of fascist organizations, they were denied due process. They were thrown in jail. They were not allowed to see their families. This was a wrong. And most of the people arrested from the historical records that I can find had nothing whatsoever to do with any political movement and were loyal Canadians. So let the apology be full. Let it be made clear that people in their time, the Canadians who made this decision, the Prime Minister who made this decision, made a mistake. Just as we did when we decided to intern thousands of Japanese Canadians, just as we did on the many, many apologies we've had in this place, when we decided if you were LGBTQ Canadian, you could not have a job in the government. So many apologies in this place, but it doesn't in any way dilute the importance of the apologies. The apologies to the families of Salvatore Vistarci, of Nicola Dogadnieri, and I note his grandson rose through the ranks of the RCMP without ever knowing his grandfather had been interned. The very touching story of Guido Nincheri, one of Canada's leading artists. And if you search the records of his life through our universal source of information these days, Wikipedia, his internment isn't mentioned because his achievements as an artist were so extraordinary that it's a small footnote that his family had to fight to get him out of jail because of the wrong assumptions about what he believed politically. What we hold in our minds and what we think about, what we care about, doesn't criminalize us, not since the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And I note with gratitude that our speaker, as the Prime Minister said, Signore Presidente, the first Italian Canadian to hold the chair of Speaker. I note our Minister of Justice, whose name I will not use, but another proud Italian Canadian. Thank you, grazie to all in this government who have finally made this apology complete. Thank you to the leader of the official opposition, leader of the New Democratic Party, and the Bloc Québécois for making it very clear that all of us appreciate what the Italian-Canadian community does for this country day to day, and that we apologize from the bottom of our hearts as best we can in 2021 for the wrongs of 1940. Merci. Thank you, Mr. President.
I'm going to have to check the standing orders, what the penalty is for making the speaker cry or choking him up. So, reports from interparliamentary delegations. Présentation de rapport.
Presenting reports from committees.